It looks bad, I know. I was sent to prison for disturbing the peace, but trust me, this is exactly the place I want to be right now. There's something I need to do in here. In fact, there's someone I need to see. Someone who has been in here for thousands of days. After a few days relaxing at home, I was visited by my new friends. The Drowned thanked me for saving their city and preserving its location a secret. So in a sign of gratitude, I was gifted with 2 awesome rewards. Beetroot seeds, which I quickly started to cultivate in my little garden, and the very weapon I used to protect them, a trident. Now, I used to own a trident myself, and even though that trident was not as powerful as this one, I used to carry it with me all the time. I loved that trident. Too bad that at the time I didn't know exactly how to use it. I always thought that it was just a food utensil, you know, like a big fork. I'm a cook after all, right? But this new trident I got was different. It was enchanted, capable of doing amazing things. So naturally, as Jose and I traveled around the region in search of new ingredients and dishes, I took it with me. I would always find ways to use it, because no matter where we went, trouble always seemed to be around the corner. We came across monsters attacking villagers, villagers retaliating on the monsters, and the occasional CEO just wrecking the environment. And as I used my trident to serve justice, I started to notice it deteriorating. It was not the same as before. The local blacksmith tried to have a look at it, maybe fix it somehow. But it was no use. This was beyond his abilities. You see, tridents are very rare weapons that were forged by a civilization that's long gone from this world. To try to fix it, I would have to go see a specialist. And even though it was not really advised to go near these people, that might be my only option. This master blacksmith I was going to pay a visit was no ordinary mob. In fact, he was no mob at all. This blacksmith was a player. Players are different from most of us. They are seen as gods by most, capable of doing amazing things, shaping the world to their will. They have been in here since the beginning of time. They're nothing like us, the mobs. It is a mystery how we got here and where we come from. Sometimes we just appear out of nowhere. And we cannot do the amazing things that they can, like build a house or cook our own food. Well, I should say most of us cannot do those things because some villagers learned a few tricks from the players after spending so much time living near them. But still, most of us are far behind them. The player was called Noor. He used to be the blacksmith of the players' community. Back in the day, he would craft the most amazing weapons and tools. But eventually, the players had a falling out, and now they all live in isolation from each other. I had never met a player in my life, so I was a bit nervous. And funny enough, he seemed very intrigued about me, but that was something I was quite used to at that point. People will always look funny at me, as if they had never seen such a mob. Noor's skills were really impressive. One look at my trident and he knew exactly how to fix it. With amending enchantments. Enchantments are really simple, but require a lot of experience. He said he was the only one who could do it. Basically, he gets instructions from a book and hammers it into an item. Or at least that's how it sounded. Unfortunately, Noor didn't have any books of mending to give away. But he knew exactly how I could get a copy. There was a librarian with an amazing selection of books. But the problem was that he was locked up somewhere. This librarian was inside the prison of Alazkaban. Noor wanted to make a deal with me. I bring him the librarian, and he fixes my trident. Now, getting inside the prison, it was very easy. Getting out is the real problem. But if you have been following my journey so far, I think you know me pretty well, right? One thing you probably know about me is that I'm always prepared. I would not put myself in danger if I didn't have the perfect plan to escape. So, I was not at all worried about escaping this prison. What could go wrong? This prison was just as bad as I had imagined. It was crowded. It was cold. Full of dangerous creatures. And the guards did not treat anyone here with dignity. But the worst thing here had to be the food. It was horrible. This place needed a good chef, that's for sure. I studied this place carefully, and I learned that the higher the floor, the more guarded the prisoner was. And the deeper the prison cell, the more dangerous the prisoner was. The librarian was at the very top. Why he was considered so important was beyond me. But I knew that I would have to find a clever way to get to him. I inspected every nook and cranny of this prison. Every cell and corridor. And talked to almost every prisoner in here. There was very little to learn from them, to be honest. Most mobs here were oblivious to what was happening around them. However, the prisoners nearby had something very interesting to share. They told me about something that is hidden behind the walls of this prison. Pipes. This place had a very intricate plumbing system. My slimy friends here were able to show me how it all worked. So I used this feature to get to the very top of the prison. But what I found up there was shocking. I expected to see a prison cell heavily guarded. But instead, I encountered a luxury apartment with every comfort you could imagine. When I realized who was living in such a style, I froze. This did not make any sense, did it? Turns out that the librarian was not a prisoner, as we thought. The librarian was the boss. That was why he was at the very top. There was little I could do, honestly. As soon as he rang that bell, every guard came rushing into the room. Well, that complicated things a bit, huh? This means I will need to change my plans drastically. Only this time, things would not be so easy. I was sent to the lowest parts of the prison, where all of the really dangerous mobs are. I was sent to solitary, with almost no access to the outside. The days here were long. Or at least that's how it felt. And to make things worse, I could not speak to anyone. In fact, I had to be very quiet if I wanted to live. You see, one of the mobs here in solitary was none other than the warden. This powerful creature hates noise and will attack anyone who dares to disturb him. The solitude of this prison made me go to some dark places again. And I found it very strange that a player did not know about any of this. Aren't they gods after all? Well, that's the thing. They're not gods. I heard stories of those players, and I heard the things that they do. I've heard the way they make us mobs work in their farms, and how they confine us in small places. I've heard of the countless ways they hurt us, and what they do to the environment. Even the villagers that lived with them, who used to be so peaceful and kind, are now so greedy and heartless. Players are no gods, they're tyrants. They are the enemy. So for that reason, of course, I could not make a deal with him. He wanted me to bring him the librarian, but I wanted to free him from this place. What I did not expect, though, was that the librarian would be just as evil as the players. But you see, I'm an experienced frog. I've been beaten into shape by this cruel world. And life has taught me that one should not put all their tadpoles in a single bucket. I still had a backup plan to get me out of the situation. And I was pretty confident that this time, it would all work in my favor. I think that at this point, you can see a trend in how I operate. In the past, I released turtles from captivity, frogs and parrots from cages, I even stole a recipe, although I'm not very proud of that one. You can see where I'm going with this. This time, I'm going to set free an entire prison. That's right. The mobs trapped in here did not commit any crimes after all. And we can always use some new allies if we ever want to fight back. Before freeing everyone, I need to find a way to get my hands on that book of mending, of course. I still need to fix my trident. Escaping solitary is actually impossible, but I was counting on some outside help for that. I had made a new ally just before locking myself into this place. It was time for old wrongdoings to be forgiven. The very mob that trapped me in a cage once came to rescue me from this prison, and she brought all sorts of items to help us. Using some of her potions, I could easily walk around prison without being noticed. And I went around talking to the prisoners. The strays were tired of being here, forgotten. The slimes missed their swamp. And there was even a piglin here, so used to the warmth of the nether, now freezing in this place. All these mobs needed someone to guide them out of this frozen hell. It was time to pay a visit to the librarian once more. But this time, I knocked on the front door with some of my new friends. Now that I had the book, we just had to build something to escape. A simple structure that no mob has ever built before. Something that, until that point in history, was a secret that only the players knew how to do it. If everyone keeps thinking that those players are gods and let them do whatever they want, we'll never have peace. So maybe it's time to fight back. We cannot let them get away with all this. When I entered this prison, I was expecting to break only the librarian out of here. However, in the end, he was the only one left behind. Well, actually not the only one. The witch made sure to leave him some company before she left the prison.